But I'm not slowly but surely transitioning every part of this entire channel into a vehicle for my new fascination with this Celtic album that I'm working on that isn't really a Celtic album, but more of an American bastardization of Celtic music. So help me God! I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Great vids, I enjoy the fact that you keep it real. Do you feel nerves before the gigs? Any tips on how to combat crushing nerves? Great question. I personally am kind of over the nervous thing when I'm playing with somebody else. And that kind of just brings me to my answer. It's really just about getting by with a little help from your friends. Now, there's a couple different ways to kind of go at it. For me, it was always the point of like, the times that I got nervous the most when I was up playing and like singing, performing by myself. And that was always kind of like a tough thing to do. I would always get super nervous beforehand, which, you know, just invariably leads to like you screwing up, then you become more nervous and it just kind of gets out of control from you. But anytime I've had like my friends there in the audience or whatever, that's always been the biggest help for me. And more specifically, when I'm performing now with a lot of my friends, usually most of the stuff I do now is at least a duo, I'm never nervous at all, just because I kind of have somebody up there with me, and it kind of takes a lot of the tension off, and there's just more of a vibe that you get to share with somebody else. So whether it's somebody that you're actually performing with, or just someone in the crowd that you trust and you know isn't judging you, because like I say in a lot of these videos, nobody really cares, but it's good to always have somebody there that you know for a fact does not care, and you know, a good friend who's able to laugh at you and stuff like that, I think has always been super helpful to me. Now, the opposite side of that, I know a lot of people, because this is just how I deal with it, I know a lot of people have less nerves if nobody they know is there. So in that case, make sure that nobody knows that you're actually playing that you might kind of like bump into, because some people get nervous playing in front of their friends or family or what have you. But for me, it's always been a thing where if I know that like I've got some people there in the audience that I can kind of like lock into, worst case scenario, it always really helps me out. And I think that's kind of true in like a lot of different things in life, you know? Like that's what friends are for, to kind of help you out. But as far as like the more recent shows, I'm so over it that it's almost just kind of like, it's really just about having a good time, which is what it should always be about. You know what I mean? Like as long as you're well practiced, which again is another underrated thing about how to deal with nerves, the amount of nervousness that I've always felt is in direct correlation to how prepared I am for any kind of show. So practice should theoretically help with your nerves. Again, everybody's different. Everybody has different levels of anxiety. But for me at this point, I'm just so over it that I really don't feel the nerves like I used to. But back in the day when I was more nervous about things, it always helped to kind of have some friends around. Hey, I learned guitar on worship music, and I was wondering for gigs, would it be all right to throw a few worship songs in? I get not everyone believes that, and that's cool, but would it be okay? I do think you have to be kind of careful. Now, as far as like a lot of the worship songs that I kind of hear on the radio or whatever, I could not tell that they are worship songs until I realized that I'm listening to some kind of like Christian radio or something like that. A good percentage of worship songs, you would have no idea they are worship songs until you're told that they're worship songs. You know what I mean? So I think if you're playing like a public gig that isn't for that, I probably wouldn't be like, I'm gonna play some worship songs for you, because I promise you there will be backlash and people will find a way to get offended at whatever it is you're playing and then just kind of be salty about the whole thing. So I think it's totally fine because again, you know, that whole genre, there's a lot of great songs in it, just like any other genre. So if that's what you're feeling, go for it. I would advise caution depending on kind of the venue about announcing specifically what they're about, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it's about. If it's a good song, it's a good song. So do your thing. Anyone that understands this guy's explanations doesn't need to learn what he's teaching. That was a great salty comment, because I think at the beginning, at the onset of the comment, he's admitting that he has no idea what I'm talking about. So obviously, anybody who has any bit of information available to them that he does not probably doesn't need to understand the concept that he already does not understand. So great salty comment. You can really read a lot into it, as a lot of these salty comments are. I think that's kind of like one of my favorite things, is to kind of like be a salty detective and try to really get at the heart of what they're trying to say. I like this one a lot. I get a lot of comments like this actually, like, what if you can understand what he's saying, then you probably understand everything there is in general. So always look forward to those. Who won the contest? So I went to the P.O. box today to grab the rest of the stuff. Also, too, I have to run the entries by the other judges because I am not judging this solely by myself, just so you know. So if you don't win, it's not my fault. It is a conglomerate of judges. But also, too, I said that the deadline for submitting was the 11th. I never ever said I would have the results out the 11th. That is not how contests work. Stop giving me crap about that. But hopefully I will have the winners up either later this weekend or early next week. So stay tuned because I got some pretty amazing entries that you're going to want to see. You had good things to say about Seagull. Do you own any at the moment? So I talked a little bit about how I thought Seagull guitars were like some of the best mid-range price guitars, specifically the S6 one that I've played a lot. I do not own one, but the reason I like them a lot is because I used to give lessons in a guitar shop that was run by my dude Justin. So I would actually be there a lot, and instead of bringing my own guitar, I just gravitated towards the Seagulls because I thought they were like definitely just like the best guitars ever. Now the only reason I don't own one is because at that time I already got the Taylor GA3, which I'm like forever in love with, which will always probably be my favorite guitar. But I thought the Seagulls really held their own, and especially for like the prices, they're fantastic. It's just at that point I couldn't justify having a Seagull and this because I kind of felt like the Seagull S6s actually sounded a lot like the Sapelli Taylors. But definitely, if if you're looking for a nice, good mid-range price guitar, solid, check the Seagulls out. Hi Sean, I really love your stuff and have learned a lot from you. I have a non-guitar related question. I was wondering if you could tell me what kind of cameras you use when making your videos are really good. I'm asking because I plan to buy a video camera for YouTube now. Hope you find the time to answer. Really good work from you, Sean. And the others love your stuff, Rob. I think I've answered a couple times before, but the Sony a7S is the main camera that I use that you're seeing right now. But what I really love is actually a lot of times for the vlogs and stuff like that, and the secondary shot of the fretboard camera that I'll use in the lessons, that Sony RX100 Mark V, I think the 6 is out now. That camera is awesome. I mean, it's not super cheap, but that camera is the best vlogging camera I've ever seen. It'd be perfect for making YouTube videos because the actual microphone on that camera is pretty decent. Like most of the vlogs, the older vlogs, and like the medieval Celtic one, that's just the sound from the camera. And having like an extra shotgun thing that you put on there always kind of like annoyed me. Like for these, I use a microphone that I have separate running into Logic, and then I just kind of sync them up together. But that Sony RX100 is an awesome camera with a great onboard microphone for what it is. Even the Sony a7S stuff, like the mic sucks, like most of the DSLR mics do suck. But I definitely love the smaller Sony one because it has a flip screen so you can see it. That would be the one that I recommend. I know that the G7X, I think, is the one that's a little bit less expensive from Canon, I believe. It's pretty comparable to that, but that's what I use, and I definitely like them a lot. So for listening homework, I'm going to throw you to a band that doesn't really need a lot of people checking them out because they're all-time classics, Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I was talking to my man Cody in Vegas last week, and we were talking about how slept on the album The Getaway is, one of their newest one, I think. So definitely check out that album if you haven't done so, or revisit it, because it's such a good album, and those guys are just beast players. Huge fan. I actually just finished reading the biography, Scar Tissue, by Anthony Kiedis, which again is just like an insane kind of retrospective of everything that band went through. But check that out. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.